Chapter 7, Guidance Essentials. Guidance, discipline, and punishment. These words mean specific things in early childhood and not necessarily what you think they mean. So, guidance is the ongoing system of strategies to help children learn to manage impulses, express feelings, channel frustration, solve problems, and learn acceptable versus unacceptable behavior. Guidance is what you do every day, right? Every day in your classroom, you should be guiding your children, providing guidance. And that is things like even how you set up your furniture, what your layout is in your classroom provides guidance. If you have a big open space, you are providing space for kids to run around and, go crazy. By making smaller areas, you are guiding them to behave in the expected way, right? Guidance is the way your schedule works. So you do high activity things and then maybe a medium activity thing and then a quiet activity thing. You don't go straight from high activity to quiet activity because it doesn't give kids time to make that transition. So the way you set up your schedule is guiding their behavior. Everything you do is guiding their behavior. What you're doing in the classroom is guidance, right? If you're yelling, you're telling them it's okay to yell. Discipline is the ability to follow an example or to follow the rules, the development of self-control or control in general, everything adults do and say to influence children's behavior. You're disciplining them. But when you think about it as discipline, like we're spanking, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about we are giving them examples and expectations. And this is the discipline that we have in place, right? Positive guidance and positive discipline. Punishment is a consequence for inappropriate behavior, and it should be very rare. You should, through your guidance and discipline, be setting kids up to achieve, excel, and meet your expectations at school. So punishment should be something that happens very, very, very rarely. Okay, the difference between guidance and punishment. Discipline and guidance we use kind of interchangeably. So discipline and guidance are you are telling kids what you want them to do. You're setting expectations. You are modeling for them the behavior that you want to see. It's an ongoing process. You're setting an example, like I said. Discipline guidance leads to self-control because you are setting children up to excel, to achieve, to be successful, and they can do that. So we'll talk about this in just a second, but you're helping children change their behavior because you're showing them what good behavior looks like. It's positive. There should not be a lot of no, don't do that. It should be, oh, hey, we should be doing this instead of that. We should be walking instead of running. We should be talking in quiet voices instead of yelling, right? That's positive. Instead of saying, stop yelling, you're not telling them what to do. You're telling them what not to do. And little kids need to know what they should be doing, right? So always think in terms of what do I want the kids to do? That's what I should be telling them to do. Discipline and guidance accepts children's need to assert themselves. Children, as they grow, are developing more independence and they're trying out new things. And we want that to happen, right? We want them to think creatively and to come up with new things. That's guidance helps that. Discipline guidance helps that. It bolsters their self-esteem because you are setting them up to be successful. You're setting them up to behave the way you want to see. And then you can say, you're doing a great job. You are using your inside voice. You are using your walking feet, whatever. I hate walking feet, by the way, because how do you walk without your feet? Right? And also, what if you have a child in your classroom who's in a wheelchair? How does that make that child feel? So we talk about running or walking, going quickly or slowly instead of use your walking feet. Don't like that one. Don't like use your words. Don't like use your walking feet. shaping their behavior. This is what you're doing. You're telling them what you want them to do. You're showing them what you want them to do. You're reminding them what you want them to do. They're doing it. They're getting praised. They're having success, and it continues, right? This is authoritative guidance or discipline. Authoritative. You are the authority, and you're helping them do what they need to do. Punishment or authoritarian guidance is when you spend all of your time talking about what you shouldn't do, right? It insists on obedience, right? We're not talking in the authoritative discipline guidance about obedience. We're talking about this is the thing that we'd like you to see you do, right? And we hope that you can do it. We know that you can do it, right? This authoritarian or punishment undermines their independence. They don't get to make the choices about what they're doing. And that's an important thing. Children need to be able to make choices. They need to understand why we're doing the things that we're doing. When you're saying, because I said so, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help a child understand why their behavior was wrong. It doesn't help a child change their behavior, right? We need to, when we're talking about, children, let's say, jumping off the top of the slide, right? Why are you doing that? Well, because it's fun, right? Why shouldn't we do it? We could get hurt. We could hurt other people. Not, you don't jump off the top of the slide because I said so. Rules and behavior expectations need to make sense to them, or they're not going to follow them. Punishment is often an adult release, which means I'm so frustrated right now, I'm just going to yell at you and tell you to stop. And I'm not going to tell you why. And I'm not going to get into it with you because I just had it, right? And that does not help the child understand why they're being punished, they're being disciplined, they're being admonished, whatever. You need to make them understand, right? Punishment is negative. You're talking about the things you shouldn't do. It thinks for the child, like I said, the jumping off the top of the slide, right? It's our rule. We just don't jump off the top of the slide. Explain why it's the rule, then they'll follow it, right? Defeats self-esteem, condemns misbehavior, right? So a lot of what the behavior that's happening in 3s and 4s in early childhood is because they're learning how things work, right? And so if you see behaviors that are not behaviors that you want to see, you need to explain to them, once again, why we don't do that. Authoritarian, that's what it is. It's the because I said so. It's because it's the rules. It's as opposed to, hey, don't do that. You're going to hurt someone. Hey, here's a thing that you could do instead of the thing that you're doing. That's authoritative and discipline and guidance. Authoritative means I'm in charge, but I'm showing my children how I want them to behave. Authoritarian means I'm the only one that gets to make decisions here. I'm the only one that gets to tell you what to do, right? A child's temperament seems to remain consistent as she grows, so we need to take that temperament into account when developing guidance techniques. There are basically 3 types of temperaments: easy, difficult, and slow to warm up. Easy are the kids who are just going to go along and get along, right? Difficult are the kids who it's very hard for them to fit into what you want to do. And slow to warm up is they'll get there, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So activity level, regulatory and rhythm of bodily routines, adaptability, physical sensitivity, intensity of reaction, ease of distraction, and attention span. All of those things make up your temperament, right? And we know that there are kids who, a prime example, especially in preschool, is moving from one activity to another is very difficult for them, right? So you need to think about, how do I set up my day so that it accommodates those children who have a hard time moving from one thing to another? So when it's cleanup time, am I going to say, it's cleanup time, everybody go? That's not going to help the child who has a hard time stopping the activity that they're doing. They may be super into Legos at that minute. When you clap your hands and say it's cleanup time, all hell's going to break loose, right? So maybe you have a 5-minute person who goes around and says, In 5 minutes, we're going to have to start cleaning up, or you stand in the classroom and ring a bell and say, in 5 minutes, we're going to start cleaning up. So start wrapping up your activities. Those are important things to think as you plan your day. Cultures influence guidance and discipline. Like we talked about back in child development, some families are very into everybody doing what they want to do. Everyone is allowed to express their feelings however they want. Children are allowed to do the things that make them feel good. Some families, the mom or dad is in charge. They make all the decisions, and children are expected to obey those decisions and respect adult authority. Children may be unable to choose activities, look adults in the eye, or call them by name. And this changes, of course, throughout children's development, right? At the beginning, parents are in charge and they make all the decisions. And then as they get a little bit older, children develop some independence and self-control, and they're able to do things on their own, right? So guidance strategies: offer choices, real choices. Use problem-solving techniques. Offer real choices. If your child is having a hard time getting dressed in the morning, set out two outfits the night before and say, you can have this one or this one. The child feels like they're a part of that. They have some autonomy. They've made that decision. Okay. Think about how a family's culture is going to impact how that child responds, engages, and acts in school. Inductive guidance. This is children are held accountable for their actions and encouraged to think about their impact on others, reasoning and problem-solving skills. This is what you want. You want children, as they are developing, to be able to take care of themselves, right? So we want to think about how to set it up so children can make choices that aren't going to harm themselves, so that they can figure out problems on their own. We're teaching thinking. We're teaching how to be independent. We're helping children understand that we are there to guide them, and they should trust us. And we're just, helping them in a positive way. Indirect guidance is how you set up your environment, how you set up your schedule, how you do your transitions. These are all things where the plans that you have made are guiding children, but not in that specific way, right? Where you're telling children what to do. Direct guidance is how you guide children in specific situations, right? And what you want to do is there's a guidance continuum. You want to move from top to bottom here. So the first thing you're going to do is ignore the behavior. So if you have a child who is in the blocks area and they're yelling about something. So if you ignore the behavior, does it go away? That's negative reinforcement, right? So if you ignore the behavior and it goes away, you're done. If you're ignoring the behavior and it's not going away, the next thing you want to do is go over to that child and say, hey, Jonah, can you tell me why you are screaming in the blocks area? What can we do? Can you tell me what's going on? I hear you screaming over here and I'm a little confused about what's happening. Can you tell me? That's active listening, right? Reinforcement, positive reinforcement. So we want to reinforce when he stops yelling. We want to say, oh, Jonah, I'm so glad you stopped yelling. My ears really hurt and now I feel so much better, right? Redirection and distraction. So maybe Jonah's screaming and you can't get through to him to talk about it. So maybe we take Jonah and find another place to go, and that may redirect him, giving him some choices. Jonah, you can continue to scream, but we're going to need to go out in the hallway if you're going to do that. Or you can play in blocks and not scream, and you can stay right where you are, right? Setting limits, active problem solving. These are all ways to provide direct guidance. And the bottom two are timeout and physical intervention. Timeout is not helpful generally unless it is accompanied by some discussion about why you're having a timeout. It is accompanied by some sort of restorative measure. So if you're getting a timeout because you threw blocks at another child, you need to go to that child as part of your timeout and ask that child, is there anything I can help you with? Does it hurt? What can I do to make you feel better? And then physical intervention is when a child is doing something so crazy and dangerous that you just have to move them out of the situation, right? So think about timeouts a little bit. We resort to timeout an awful lot, and it doesn't always do what we want it to do. In fact, it doesn't usually do what we want it to do. In most cases, it stops the behavior, but it doesn't have a lasting effect in that it doesn't say to the child, I saw this behavior that you were doing that was not appropriate, or it was negative behavior, or it was dangerous behavior, and I put you in timeout. It stopped the behavior. It doesn't say to the child, here's an alternative thing that you could do, like you were throwing blocks and I put you in timeout. We need to look at why you were throwing the blocks, and that will help us understand an alternative behavior, right? So if you were throwing the blocks because Rudy wasn't paying attention to you, maybe we need to talk about ways to get our friends to pay attention to us. Or we also might need to talk about sometimes our friends don't want to pay attention to us. So we need to, when we do a timeout, think about what are other ways that we could help this child so that we don't have to send them to timeout again. Okay, so there's some guidance for you.